everyone. We would like to thank you for tuning in again to the Literacy Volunteers of Harrison County YouTube channel. We're a nonprofit United Way agency, and we were providing these videos for educational purposes, and we would love for you to like our channel, subscribe, share it with your friends, with your students, with your children, anybody who would be interested in learning a few extra things, or just remediation. Today I'm going to talk about immunity. We're starting a whole series of lessons on health and wellness. And so right now it's topical to talk about immunity, your immune system. So let's look at what is immunity. How do we get this in our body, and what is the benefit of having a healthy immune system? Why would we want this? Immunity is the ability of an organism to resist a particular infection or toxin by these actions of what are called antibodies or specialized white blood cells. If you'll notice here, parentheses, I put WBCs. So from now on, whenever I write it out, I'm going to write out WBC instead of white blood cell. They're also, you might hear, called leukocytes. Leuko means white, cyte means cell. So those two things go together. Leukocytes, hence leukemia, right? That's kind of a cancer in your blood, in your white blood cells mainly. So what is an antibody? Up here they talk about these actions of antibodies, but we need to know what is an antibody. An antibody is the protein component of the immune system. When we talk about biology in terms of whatever it is, usually molecular biology, proteins are a big thing. Almost every answer you say, what happens because of a protein, right? And a hormone, but a protein mostly. So that's the protein component, and it circulates in your blood. Everywhere your blood goes, it goes. And it will see these foreign substances like viruses or bacteria or parasites, and what it does is it neutralizes them or kills them. This is your defense mechanism system. So you get exposed to an antigen, one of those foreign substances that I just mentioned, and those antibodies come in and circulate in your blood, and they provide protection against future exposures to that antigen. You might have seen on TV where they're giving people with COVID-19 antibody tests. If they think you've been exposed and you've recovered, you'll have these antibodies in your system. And now it's a big thing for these people to donate their blood plasma to other people to kind of introduce those antibodies into their system to keep that virus at bay. What are specialized white blood cells then? They are defenders of the body. This is your defense system. They develop from stem cells. Stem cells are cells before they become any type of cell. They're called pluripotent cells. So these cells are made typically when you're developing, and it could be a brain cell, a heart cell, a lung cell. Whatever cell we need, it will differentiate. But these are found in the bone marrow, and they circulate in the blood and also in what's called the lymph fluid. You have lymph system. There are 8 types of white blood cells. We're going to look at all 8 very briefly. The first type are what are called macrophages. Macro means big, right? So macrophages digest cells and those pathogens, and they aid in adaptive immunity. And we're going to look at adaptive immunity in a minute. We also have what are called dendritic cells. Those will help to identify that pathogen once it enters into your body. We have B cells. Those produce the proteins and the antibodies that counter those pathogens. T cells. Those will destroy the infected cells, and after they destroy them, they'll signal other cells to participate. So it's sort of like, a bunch of people coming in, a bunch of cells coming in to defend against this foreign invader. And they do that by breaking down cell membranes. Around every cell in your body, you have what's called a cell membrane. It's made of phospholipids. It's made of phosphates and fats. And it's sort of a dynamic structure that allows things in and out, depending on different mechanisms, and we don't have to go into those. But they break down that membrane around that cell, and they initiate a process called apoptosis. Apoptosis is cell suicide. That cell dies. Right? It's an apoptosis. So a reduced number of these T cells can compromise our ability of our immune system to defend our body. So that foreign invaders come in, you have a reduced number of T cells, and you can't fight against that. You have a weakened immune system. Defective T cells can lead to the development of different types of cancer or autoimmune diseases like lupus. Lupus is an autoimmune disease. We also have natural killer cells. Those destroy the disease cells. Neutrophils destroy pathogens. Eosinophils come against parasitic infections and allergic reactions. Allergic reactions are hypersensitivity reactions. You go outside, the pollen goes up your nose, you have an allergic reaction. Eosinophils may come in and help with that. And then we have what are called basophils. And they contain two things. One is histamine, and the other is heparin. Heparin's a blood clotting factor, and histamine dilates those blood vessels to get more blood to rush in to help those certain diseases or disorders. So we want to know how the immune system works. So let's look at the process. First we have this pathogen. Path means disease or death, right? A pathologist is someone who dissects human bodies after you've died to find out what happened to you. So this pathogen is encountered. Either we have a bacteria, a virus, a parasite entered our body. The white blood cells will find that pathogen, usually, if we want to talk about COVID, through your nasal passages. You inhale that, and then they're going to mount an attack against it. We see a foreign invader, we need your body to fight against that. So the detection occurs by recognition of proteins that are found on the surface of all cells. On all your cells you have what are called cell surface marker proteins. That lets you know who you are. So your body knows you, and your body can detect. If you had a kidney transplant, even though that person was matched with you, your cell surface markers aren't going to match. That's why they give you anti-rejection drugs, so your body doesn't mount a defense against itself, because that's essentially what it would do. Antibodies lock onto that antigen, right? And they do not kill it. They just mark it for death. They say this one needs to die, right? And then we have what are called phagocytes. They will kill it. There are two different ways to engulf cells. One's called phagocytosis, where a cell takes in another cell, and one they're called lysozymes in that cell kill it. So this is a killing process here. The T lymphocytes, there are two different types. Helper T cells, and what they do is they coordinate this immune response with the other cells. Come in, you need to help me. We have all these types of white blood cells, come and help. And they stimulate those B cells to produce more antibodies, and those attract more T cells, or those cell-eating phagocytes that I just told you about. We also have killer T cells. Those are cytotoxic. Cyto means cell, toxic means we're going to die. It's going to kill us, right? They attract other cells. They're useful in fighting viruses because they recognize small parts of the virus on the outside of infected cells. So what I thought I would do is just show you a very diagrammatic picture. Some of you have never seen a picture of a virus or a representation. This is a representation of a different kind of virus. The coronavirus is that ball you see on TV with all those little spikes hanging out of it. This is a different type of virus. But viruses all have this protein coat that's on the outside of them. On the inside here, you either have DNA or RNA. And if you would like to hear about viruses, I could do a lesson on those. But what this virus does is inject its DNA or RNA into the cell, uses the nucleus of this cell to make copies of itself. So that's what we're defending against. Now this cell becomes infected with this virus, and it has a certain mechanism that will project onto its cell membrane, and then those other cells can identify it. Okay? So we have different types of immunity. Once we produce an antibody, we have a copy that remains in the body. It's what I was just talking to you about. So if you see that antigen again, it can be dealt with more quickly. That's why they want you to experience these viruses to build up this immunity against them, right? That's what you need to do. There are three different types of immunity. The first one's innate. Innate means you're born with it, right? Someone says you have innate ability to play the piano, right? So it includes external barriers for our body. You hear a lot of doctors talk about the first line of defense. Your first line of defense is our innate immunity. That's our skin, our mucous membranes in our throat and our gut and your stomach. Those will help to protect you. And this is a generalized response, not a specific response, right? Your skin is not going to be specific to a specific antigen. It's just a general protection for you. If you have a cut in your skin, a long time ago people were worried about AIDS, the HIV virus, right? Because it could get into your bloodstream that way. And then the second type is called adaptive or acquired. Acquired means we have to get it, right? So as we're exposed to these diseases, or we get a vaccination, we build up, and I put in quotations, a library, because we're using this to say a whole bunch of these different ones, of antibodies to various pathogens. Sometimes that's called immunological memory. Your body senses it again, sees it, and kills it automatically because we already have the defense against it. The third type is passive, and that means passive means we borrowed it from another source. It doesn't last indefinitely. So an example it gives us is babies, right? Well, your baby and then the placenta, you receive these antibodies from your mom. And then before birth, and then in breast milk following birth. If any of you have ever heard of a blue baby, there is a certain blood type. If you're negative, like I was A negative, I had to have a shot before the baby was born, because if that baby has positive blood and the mama has negative blood, you start building up those antibodies because it's fighting against it, like I told you. It's foreign. And a long time ago they didn't know that, and the babies would be born without oxygen, they would be blue. They called them blue babies. But now they can fight against that. But that's an antigen antibody reaction in the mother and the child's body. And that will help to protect them from infections during the early years of life, right? The last thing we want to look at just for a second is immunizations. And this is a big hot topic. I know some people don't believe in immunizations. There's some propaganda out there that says they cause autism. And there are some other things. You would have to research that for yourself just to see where you lie. But immunizations for little kids are shots. You have to go to the doctor, and nobody likes to get a shot. But they introduce weakened pathogens. What they've done, and that's what they're looking for in this virus or this vaccination against COVID-19. They find the weakened pathogen, they introduce that into your body, so you do not become sick, but you're still going to produce those antibodies. A long time ago, maybe not for you, a long time ago in the 70s, instead of injecting this, they would inject you with a live virus, or with the actual virus, and people would become deathly ill. Because now they're producing antibodies against, just like they got the virus. But still, now you have that immunity, right? Antibodies can protect if the threat should appear later in life. So you talk about things like that, that's immunizations. So what we want to know with our health and wellness is, how can we boost our immune system? How can we fight off these things when we get them or when we're exposed to them? One, you need to have a healthy lifestyle. We're going to look at that in our health and wellness series. Don't smoke. Smoking is bad for you. You already know that. Carcinogenic means it causes cancer, and it's not good for your wellness. You have to have a diet high in fruits and vegetables to maintain, healthiness. Exercise. Maintain a healthy weight. Don't let your weight fluctuate too high. If you drink alcohol, only do so in moderation. Get your adequate amount of sleep. Take steps to avoid infections, and this is a big thing now, not only wearing your mask, but washing your hands. First line of defense, we talked about that. Make sure you're always washing your hands, and not for a second. Wash them thoroughly so that you can get rid of all those germs, right? And then the last thing we look at is we want to try to reduce stress. That will help with your body's overall immunological response to whatever it is that we're coming up against, bacteria or viruses or parasites. So if you would like to know more about this, just let us know, and please like and subscribe to our channel and give us a big thumbs up. Have a good day.